The one thing that's not a one thing, there's a lot of things that I learned from this man, but like Martin Stemming used to say is like, if you want to be good at something or you are good at something, you need to do it every day.
Yes.
You know, even if you're a drummer and just you beat the drum,
100%.
you know, feel a melody, you know, yeah, as a producer, put down a couple of beats. Someday that daily progression is quite key. So
100%.
I'm constantly writing, you know.
I was thinking that you thought that we thought about the thoughts, but sometimes your thought is my thought. So why can't we just think upon the thoughts? I don't write poetry.
Lazarusman is a Joburg-born, Cape Town-based poet, DJ, and creative director who weaves deep electronic soundscapes and spoken word. His immersive sets blur lines between performance and ritual, creating soulful experiences. As a creative director currently at M&C Saatchi, he brings his understanding of cultural relevance while championing storytelling and mindfulness in modern brand communication.
Heavy is the head that wear the crown. When I take the crown off, I put it on ice.
We are almost on 10,000 subscribers. Maybe the next guest is going to get us there because he's got like 300 or 400,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Maybe you can convince them to subscribe. But yeah, when we hit 10,000 subscribers, we're going to give 10,000 Rand. All you got to do is follow the link in the description. Shout out to our sponsor, Binance. You need a Binance account, follow the link. And once we hit 10,000, we're going to announce who the winner is. But I'm so excited to sit here with my man's Lazarusman.
It's your boy.
I'm so excited to do this, bro, because you, in this like crazy realm of dance music, you found this like, it's really a unique thing to be able to carve out your own lane.
Yeah.
And you've done it so early in your career, bro.
Yeah.
So like, maybe just give us a little high overview of, you know, when you are in your professional circles and someone asks you what you do for a living, how do you articulate that answer between the two worlds that you live and operate in?
It's difficult because I think it's no one ever says the right thing. You know, like we're like, oh yeah, aren't you the DJ? And deep inside, I'm like, yeah, but I'm actually an artist. You know what I'm saying? It's like DJing's the outlet, but like I wouldn't be DJing if I didn't make music. So I think it's complete with that. And then at the same time, you know, I also like work as a creative director at an advertising agency, M&C Saatchi Able. So it really has been quite fun balancing those two worlds. I think I'm at work, I don't like people bringing up my stuff. I'm like, this is a professional environment. You know what I'm saying? I don't bring up the fact that you pay per dial on a professional level. So keep that to yourself. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I think it's also a little bit frowned upon, you know, to be not, it's almost like people are like, what, you're not doing this full time? You know, in the artistic world, you know, so it's like,
you're that good, bro. You know, it's like to people, it's like a mind boggling.
So
that's
like,
not the full time thing.
So then, and also, I think also like as artists, we're so anti-work. You know, it's like, fuck a job, you know, sorry if I'm cussing, but like, we're not about that kind of thing. So I'm still holding down a job and still trying to be like a super dope poet.
But that's by design, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I think I knew the routes I was going to take in the beginning. When I sort of, when the idea clicked to pivot from doing spoken word, in its usual settings, you know, cafes, theaters, you know, I knew that it was going to be a tough lane to sort of go into. So I knew that trying to do it full time wasn't going to like be viable because it was such a niche thing that I knew I was going to go for. And there are people who are sort of that have done it, but I think on the level that I was thinking of considering it, I was going to be like one of few people in the country, you know? So I was like, that's not a lot of bread.
but you're also at the level where if you wanted to do it full time, you know, it's bringing in money. You
Yeah.
could definitely, but you at some point have decided to
do both things.
know?
I think that was the basis of also at the same time I romanced with the idea of being excellent at both. You know, it's like a little thing to myself. I was like, yeah, I'm dope at that too, and I'm dope at that. You know, so it's something that I kind of liked instead of like being. And yeah, I look at it as being like a one-trick pony, of which I didn't want to be. I like the duality, you know, and
100%.
it also gives me structure. Otherwise, guys.
100%. Yeah, and it's complementary, right?
Yeah.
You like what you're learning on this side, you can add some stuff there. What you learn on that side, you can, you know,
Yeah.
they and I'm sure it must be interesting bumping into the agency people on the dance floor.
Oh no,
like,
unreal. Like I think it's always like weird. Like also at the time, like when people don't know and then they find out, and then it's like.
Again, it's not like
I heard you at the gym this weekend.
yeah, but it's
that
different.
happens.
It's not like, yeah, Johnny plays a great set. It's like,
no, they pop out.
bro, to
They
see
literally
you.
they flip out. But it's cute.
So I think if people don't like, if someone's watching this and they don't know, like, I think if we can just explain that. So you not only produce, you not only play the music, you obviously have this like element of spoken word.
Yeah.
That's how you write music as well. You write.
So
What's the
I
best way
kind
to
of thought
explain it?
about production for a little while, and I settled on the idea that I need to. That's the one element of the music where I'm quite myopic. Like over the years, I've grown more into being involved in having more of a voice in the production of the music.
Yes.
Because I've learned certain things as well. But my thing is, I focus on the words, and a lot of the times, I'm kind of nitpicking and choosing the producers based on maybe what I feel at the time. I'm like, I'm going through a bit of an Afro house phase. So, you know, if the offers come in or the artists that want to talk or collaborate, I'll do that. And then like, I'm like, oh, when was the last time I made a techno track? So then you start to have conversations with people that make those kind of genres. So that's where I think is my sort of strength in a sense is because I listen to a lot of music. I'm exposed to a lot of producers and ideas, and I write and think a lot. So it's the process of collaborating with those people,
Incredible.
you know, which is really fun, you know.
Incredible, bro. You like creative directing in both worlds.
Yeah.
So dope, bro. Okay, so broski, take me to the beginning. If we're watching that Netflix documentary and then the logo says and then the documentary starts, like what's the origin story? Like take me back, give me some early context to your life.
Yeah. It was I think also like I kind of grew up a little bit of we always had to like sort of fit into the neighborhoods we kind of like moved into. My like for some reason I can't even think now, but we moved around a lot as a kid and things like that. So and I think the language kind of came from the fact that when my mom worked as a helper, and she kind of the woman that she worked for and you know, you try to find the politically correct way to say helper, maid, whatever the case might be. But the woman she worked for was, you know, she was a midwife. She wasn't like always at work and stuff like that. So she took my brother and I, and she taught us English like at a super young age. So we grew up with these kids, because it's also like I speak about all the time, like the difference between like the kind of Model C ideas that in the townships, the kids were taught English by black teachers, whereas in the burbs and other areas, it's white teachers teaching it. So that's why there's always that dissonance in accents, you know, and that's why, you know, people are going to be labeled coconuts. So I had that my entire life because we spoke too well. So, but that was the beginning of the journey with the language in its way. And then I think probably about grade 7, quite late, we got introduced to poetry. And at the time, I didn't know it. I kind of just had musings and scribblings. And then the teacher was like, yo, bro, this is crazy. She goes, write another one.
Wow, bro.
You know, and then I did that. And then they ran with it. They were like, okay, cool. Where can we go? Now they're starting to like enter me into like regional competitions and things like that. I'm not even like circular to I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm just getting the attention from the teachers, which is kind of nice. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I felt great. And then, and I think the best choice I made was the high school I chose. I went to Germiston High. And at the time, that was a very competitive school on all fronts. Rapping, basketball, soccer, dancing. Like we were, like the school was just heaving with talent. I think, you know, I was probably, I remember being in ciphers with Reason at break.
Crazy, bro.
You know what I'm
Serious.
saying? And that's what it was like. Our talent shows, like they would invite like the guys, the first time I laid eyes on DJ Fresh, he was in my school hall, you know, Kabzela and them used to come and judge our talent show. So my school was like lit like that. And I discovered slam poetry in grade 8 in a classroom at school. I'd never seen anything like that before in my life.
How do you see it? Does someone play some?
No,
a clip
like the
for you,
kids
or
sit
the
around
kids?
and then like there's like 5 poets that come
Oh,
through.
you in the
You're in the
actual-
room. The room
Oh.
is packed, dog. We're all just sitting like this, and there's like 5 poets who come through. And for some days, you know, what was really amazing to me about slam, because I was already writing poetry, right? But when I saw what slam was, because I tried to rap, right? And I even remember like being in some of the ciphers, and the skill was there. But like guys would be like, yeah, crooked, the warm monk, snatch him up and kill them. And then when the verse came to me, I was like, the roses and waves are flowing. And they were like, nah. Yo, what's this? You
As
know,
I'm staring out the window,
no one had heard
the waves
comedians.
of
You know
say,
what I'm
hey,
saying?
whoa.
Stop.
It's not
Get
hard
off that
enough,
bullshit.
dog,
This is
please.
not, yeah. So when I saw slam poetry, it was the immediate
Wow.
gap between that. It wasn't rap.
Incredible.
But it was still performative in the way that hip hop was. These guys were using their bodies, like their veins would like come out for words and bars. So it was the poem was one thing. The performance of the poem was another.
a whole
And
other-
marrying those things, I popped, I snapped. I
Wow.
was obsessed. I was writing poems in maths class, science class, and detention.
Crazy, bro.
You know what I'm saying? And then I think on the radio, like, you know, the bad boy, no, it wasn't Bad Boy 2. It was, what was it? It wasn't Bad Boy 2, Nati, Sansa. It was that show in the afternoon.
Yes.
They would have poets come over.
Yes, I
in the
remember.
afternoon.
Yeah.
So, I wrote in, and they would have to get a chance to be on radio, you had to go to Horror Cafe.
Yes.
In Newtown.
Yes.
So I got to Horror Cafe. 17-year-old kid carrying his poems. Everybody's like on the north side of 35, bro. Some bros are like beards out, smelling of like, impepo, just ready for the poems, bro. I was like, what the hell is this, bro? I was like, this is not school, bro. Like everyone is just like serious. Oaks are in suits.
How did you rank with them? Like,
Nah, I
how
won.
Did you chat?
Nah, shout out,
Yo,
some guy said he
crazy.
came all the way from Swaziland, so I won, and I got the taste for that, and
Wow.
the slam scene was massive in Johannesburg at the time. There were slams popping off like wildfires everywhere, and we were all competing. It was competitive, and I made it a habit of winning the slams that I went into. And I
Crazy.
think after years of doing that and pushing the slam thing, I was like, yo, actually, there's no rich poets. I don't know any there's no guy on TV like with like or
Driving
like
a
in a
Porsche.
convertible that's
Yeah.
like, yeah, what do you do? Poetry. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. When does the sort of path interact with music in some way, shape, or form?
So I think that path sort of begins in a parallel way, because while I'm discovering poetry, my coconutness, and growing up in the burbs is exposing me to like these white kids on LimeWire and sitting in big like lands, and these orcs are just tearing music off the internet and just like sitting and listening to that like wire. We were just like, I mean, I couldn't play. I went to the lands, I didn't give a damn about Counter-Strike, but I was like, let's listen to tunes. Like, let me listen to your folders and the stuff that you've got, which was amazing. And then I think it wasn't until like I heard Roland Clark's Resist,
yes.
Resist, Fight the Power. Then I was like, whoa.
The link happened.
This guy is doing it on this music that I like. You know what I'm saying? So,
bro.
and it was crazy because after that it accelerated because, like my gran, bless my gran, she kind of worked hard and bought us like a Sahara desktop. And those things were like, they cost like a small Polo back then.
Yeah.
And she bought us that and it had a CD rewriter. So we were just like collecting stuff and just switching discs and CDs and filling hard drives with so much music. So, and that's the path until I remember this guy, and Sfiso Zwane at school, he gave me like the disc. He was trading me for a compilation, and compilations are big. That was the first time I heard of MP3, and he was like, yo, look, I need this fresh house flavor. I've got 3 MP3. I've got this, there. And there were files there. There's one was called Snari. And I opened those files and then that warped my mind, and then crash bang, after high school, discover Martin Stimming.
Over.
Yeah.
Crazy, bro. Crazy. And like after high school, is that the sort of, okay, I'm going to need to study as well. Let me go this route of, was it graphic design?
No, it was actually, and I was such an airhead, but I had so many ideas and dreams. Like I didn't even think to go try and do music or anything like that or pursue writing. I was like, I want to direct films. So I went to AFTA. I went to AFTA and, but by hook or crook, AFTA, like all the kids that are at AFTA are exactly like me. They sing, they dance, they write, but they also are curious about films. So we'd have little talent shows at the little room at AFTA Day. And that was actually when I met Ricky Rick for the first time, and I was like, once again, going off on the poetry slams, and doing that. So that was the kind of thing. But of course, AFTA was way too expensive then. And and my brother at the time was like, he was killing his grades. I was like, let's back this horse.
Really?
I'll find a different way to sort of get to where I wanted. And then I think I started teaching English, and Facebook kind of blew up, it arrived, but no one knew how to use it yet, so we were just and we were already big stimming fans by then. So then I was like, I said to my bro, I was like, yo man, look, Martin Stimming's online. I was like, let's follow him. We follow him, he comes online. My brother chats to him. He says something to my brother. Yeah. My brother tells me, I take the thing that he said and I post it in a message. And then I was like I said, yo, dude, I write poems. I'd love to send you a poem. He was like, oh, cool. And I sent him that song, and it was just in a moment thing. I was like, imagine what it would be. I said, imagine if I could get on a track with this guy, I mean, and social media was so basic back then. And I'm so lucky it was because you couldn't do something like that now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It takes a lot of
I email requests.
You're there. I think at some point, dog, I was followed by Fernando Alonso on Instagram because no one knew how that worked. He was just accepting. He was like, yo, okay. It's a boy from South Africa.
Cool.
Yeah,
let's go. That's hilarious.
So I'm grateful for that moment because it really opened up the channels from then on. And then, yeah.
That's crazy. What a dope story, bro. Jeez, man. And how do you get into the corporate side of agency?
Yeah, that was also something that was quite such a weird moment. I got asked, I met a lady and she was like, oh, you'd be so good in ads. Come to my casting agency. I went to a casting agency. I casted, and then a few months later, I got called up for a Castle Light ad, which was going to be the first content-driven ad. It was going to be episodic, and first real push of campaign. Again, early days of social media. First campaign on YouTube at the time, and it was going to be a bit of a series, and I was the lead in that. Okay. So I came and I did that, and then forgot about that. Then a few months later, I'm out in Hyde Park. I'm with some homies. It's a house party. I'm trying to act like I'm famous. I meet this girl and I start she's got a British accent. I've never heard a British accent before. I'm like, yo, what? I start trying to get she goes, I know you, So I'm like, oh, I'm yes, Lazarusman is off the ground. I was like, oh, well, it's like, no, man, I know you now. And then she goes, wait, aren't you in the Castle Light ads? I was like, damn. She's like, well, I'm from YouTube. I'm from Google actually, and I've come to South Africa to basically plant the seeds on how, brands can utilize YouTube as a platform. And I was using your video in this as a reference to a brand that's done that and the abilities that it gives you and the stretch. And the reception is quite good. And I was just at an agency recently and they have a vacancy that I think you'd be great for.
No ways, bro. That's crazy.
I'm like, what? I shut down. I was like, okay, cool. My game went out. She completely caught me off guard, Crazy. And then I was like, okay, cool, fine. Looked at this thing and it was they just needed a content writer, a blogger type individual, to go and collect stories in an Isuzu Baki, and I'd be paired with a photographer and it's a 6-month gig. I sent the CV in, they called, they're like, cool, you're cool. You got vibes. Put me in a Baki, the crazy camera guy, and we just went for like I saw South Africa for like 6 months, just going with this guy, going to like the deep reaches of places, finding Isuzu buckets in wild places, and that was my beginning of agency life. And then, so the crazy thing happens is that they used to have these things on Fridays where there were like little inspirational sessions, and the guy that was supposed to speak on that day couldn't make it because something had happened to his daughter. So they didn't have a plan, and it was very last minute. So I was like, yo, I'll do a crash course in slam poetry. They were like, oh, okay. So I got there and I spoke about slam and da-da-da-da. Then I did 3 poems. And then I always do this thing in the things that always gave me that edge, that I was always able to ask people for words during and then create a poem dead on the spot. And that always like made people go low, like, what?
Yo, that's crazy, bro.
So, and then they were like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, you do this too, And then then they were like, cool, we're hosting like a big, NetBank talk, and Spike Lee's going to be there, and we want you to perform there. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Get there, perform. All the agency heads are there. My contract ends. Joe Public calls.
Crazy, bro. Jeez.
I jump to Joe Public.
Competitor.
I get there. It's like, now it's serious. Now it's not blogging. Now I got to learn SEO. I got to learn character counts.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. But I somehow managed to like stick it out, help them win SAB. They land SAB, kind of adopted like their early digital work when Chicken Licken walked in through the door.
Crazy.
And then, that kind of wound down because at the same time, the brand's growing. Lazarusman on the side as an artist, I'm starting to leave the country now. I'm starting to work with brands.
And still purely poetry.
Yes.
Okay.
And also music
Yes.
as well. The music is also starting to pop off in the same way,
When do you like transition into, I'm gonna DJ and...
Oh, you've got so much to discuss. The DJing thing was tough because the first bookings I got were just for poetry, because I only DJ'd on Atomics and virtual DJ. Like, we just sat in a room and did that. Like, I didn't know how everything worked or the case. So I was always on the mic, But I never liked what the guys who booked me played. I was like, oh, the set is boring. And if I'm not entertained, I've got nothing to say on the mic.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm having to like say stuff over like the most hard ear shredding techno.
Yeah.
At like 2 p.m. in the afternoon at Rockin' the Daisies.
Do you feel...
Not AM, my man.
Yeah.
Afternoon.
No ways.
And I'm like, these are the choices you're making, my man. Like, so I was like, I have to learn. I have to be able to control the narrative when I'm up there, and I know the music that invokes emotion out of me. So started on a little MIDI thing that used to plug into the mixer. Then everyone looked at you funny for that. They're like,
Not a real DJ.
are you even the Lazarusman?
Yeah.
And then got a laptop, sound card into that, but a nightmare to like hook up at clubs and things like that. Just every set starts like with anxiety.
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, cool. Final boss, CDG.
Yeah. What, do you remember your first DJ set? Like officially in front of a crowd?
Yeah, the first of like maybe official DJ set was at the V-Ball Escala. We carried the tower from the house.
Yes.
In the taxi with the tower.
Yes.
And then you just plug it in like Mchava, when he went to Belgium. He took the tower.
Yeah. We've all been there, brother.
Yeah, they needed to put the screen in the club.
Yeah.
That was sick. That was sick. Yeah. So, but I think the first real serious one, where like I was like, okay, cool, we're elevated, was upstairs at Truth.
Okay.
That place would always be like, and that was, I think, that was like, that focused me. Like, I was like, okay, cool, I can do this.
Yes.
Like, I got this now. I don't need anyone. And I had to ask. I was like, guys, put me on. They're like, but we've never heard you play. I'm like, yeah, but doesn't mean that I don't need to play. I'm tired of being on your vocals.
Incredible, bro.
Yeah.
And you deserved like the spot,
Yeah.
They had seen you, a familiar face. Cool, he's working on something. Let's give him the shot.
Yeah. Can't you see me knocking? Let me in. Yeah. So as I said, like those things were like coming up like that. And the stint at Joe Public ended because also at the time, like I was struggling to balance
Yes.
the music and the thing, I'd allowed the stuff was, I think it was actually what actually like put the cats amongst the pigeons was a Castle Milk Stout tour.
Yes.
With the soil.
Yeah.
3 cities.
Yeah.
So every Friday I had to be out of work and I felt guilty to ask. So, man pulled in sick. Man got family issues. I look back now, I was like, I could have definitely handled that better.
Yeah,
I could have been like, guys, look, I got a thing. I'll be back every Friday. Nah, me, I chose the most difficult way, So that ended, and then like,
residency on the line, bro.
So
every Friday.
Dog, I was there. Like, and then they see me, they're like, oh, this guy's in Cape Town.
Shit, that's funny, bro.
And then Ogilvy came calling. It's, and that was, it's actually weird. I think the only CV I said, was at VML, but every other time the homie's been calling. Ogilvy was a university.
Yeah.
I remember I wrote my first radio script at Ogilvy. It was a page long. They were like, my guy, this thing's going to be 30 seconds. You've written 2 minutes here, man.
Write a short story.
They're like, they're like, we're going to shoot a TVC, write the thing. I come back with 3 pages. I read the first thing and the guy was like, and I'm describing everything. The moon walks. It's just like, it's like Lord of the Rings, like every pebble. And then the guys are like, what is this, bro? What are you doing here?
Crazy, bro.
Then,
so Ogilvy as well, bro.
Ogilvy, I've actually done the big boys. Then Ogilvy, and then PBDO called.
Crazy, bro.
And then M&C Saatchi called. So it's been.
And has your role changed quite a bit on that side? You've worn quite a few hats, eh?
And I accelerated quite quickly because I was hungry. It was like, because I didn't get it, I was like, well, this is something new. Like, what is this? And I want to get on top of it, So that I poured in hours, and then I started to understand the beast that was advertising, and how it began to work. And then where do I need to be? And I was like, I'm actually not just happy just being like a senior copywriter. I want to be a group head. I want to be a creative director. One day I would like to be an ECD. So I started to push from that in those levels. And so, and like creative director was like the dream,
Incredible, bro.
That was like that. And that, happened like 2 years ago in a sense, or a year ago in a sense. And that,
like them.
you know what I'm saying? So that was the blessing. And now, unless this thing that I'm working on blows off, pops off as what I'm hoping it will, I would like to be an ECD somewhere, at some point,
bro.
to just
Crazy.
like have that. I might quit after that. Be like, thanks.
Done it all. Thanks, everybody. Are you opening your own agency? Nah,
it's good.
Just trying to get there.
That's what.
Just to say I did.
That's what Rosenberg did. He won the championship. And he's like, thanks, guys. They're like, you're not coming back now. Nah, this is what I wanted. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Bro, tell me the name. Does that sort of develop during poetry?
Yeah, it does.
And how does it come together?
Because I used to really hate my name. But mainly because of like the Bible and things like that, and everyone associating that, and like some people don't understand why you would name your child that because he died, and then the other one he was like a pauper who deceived people, all these things.
Yes,
so there were the connotations around that, and every Lazarus I met sucked.
For real.
You know what I'm saying? And I used to think about it like that on that existential level. I'm like, are there any famous Lazaruses, like guys who are like, but it became when I decided to get serious about the poetry, because watching the slam artists, they always had a different thing. Dave, the infected lung, or whatever the case might be. So I was like, I need something. But I was like, I don't understand this, and then one day it was like a late night on SABC1 and there was like a cowboy flick, and it starts quite crazy. This guy, they break into his house, they shoot up his wife and kids, they shoot him, and then they bury him. And then this guy comes back to life. And, the title goes, Lazarusman.
Crazy.
Sick. I was like, what does this Lazarus mean? And then started to do a little bit of research and dug up a little bit more. And then there was this famous Chinua Achebe story about a lawyer who knocks someone over in the highway in Nigeria. And the poor village around go, oh my gosh, he's killed somebody. So they pelt the lawyer to death. As they do that, the guy who got knocked over wakes up. And the villager's like, oh, look what you made us do. We killed this man because he killed you. They kill him. And it was such a great like narrative. So then I did that and then looked it up. And then in Hebrew, Lazarus means God will help. So I was like, oh, I've got all these things to work with. So Lazarusman, God will help man, you know, in a sense,
Beautiful,
which I liked from like a ethereal kind of thing in a sense. So because also I mean, I'm not very religious or, you know, in a sense, but I do think that what I do comes from a different realm. You know, I'm just a medium in a sense, you know, so it does feel like, because it's crazy how I can just tap into it. I'm like, "Boing," you know, yeah.
Is it still like till today? Is it something you have to like chip away all the time to keep that sort of?
Yes.
Do you feel like you lose it a little bit when you're not?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, can you still do the words and the poetry thing?
Yeah.
Man, we'll test you now.
There was I'm quite rusty there at the moment, but the one thing there's a lot of things that I learned from this man, but like Martin Stimming used to say is like, if you want to be good at something or you are good at something, you need to do it every day.
Yes.
You know, even if you're a drummer and just you beat the drum,
100%.
you know, feel a melody, you know, as a producer, put down a couple of beats. Someday that daily progression is quite key. So
100%.
I'm constantly writing. You know, I've always got like a notepad close by, the notes open, they close. And what is quite fun as well is what advertising is also allowed to do is that it keeps my brain ticking. So because it's always working, it's constantly in the right rev counter to switch up a gear when I go into studio. You know, my studio time normally happens, I knock off at 5, and then from about 6 until about 8 or 10. We're in there cooking.
Got you.
So,
yeah. And it's like, I'm sure it's stimulating the right parts of your brain, the type of work you're working on in the creative space, and you're trying to figure out.
100%.
That chase, I'm sure, is helping.
100%.
Create ideas, you know?
Yeah, because I do think a lot, you know, like consistently considering, you know, possibilities, parallels, all these things are consistently in my head all the time. Like I'm walking, I'm like, oh, what if he lived over there? What would his room be like? You know, like these are all like kind of things that happen in my brain. So it's nice to keep it like that. And it's also a form of escapism. I escape the work with the art, and I escape the art with the work. You know,
that, bro.
Yeah,
that's powerful. A couple more questions, bro, before we wrap up. What does the next while look like, bro? What is the thing that you know, I do believe to keep creative people motivated, they've always got some sort of North Star that they're like, yo, that's the next thing. So what are those things from a music perspective? What are those things from an agency perspective? And
it's crazy because I think from this point, I was kind of like coming to record this with you. I was like, I actually only wanted ever to come here if I had like something to speak about, you know, because in case that question comes up. And I'm proud to say that, I can say that it's like, we're just like probably like 30% away from completing like a 3-year body of work.
Wow,
you know,
bro.
Having collaborated with maybe like 10 different producers and working to make those people all sound harmonious with a unified thought and idea has been quite beautiful in that sense. So, and also I think that's the milestone because I've got my Beatport, you know, rows and rows and rows, but a body of work, you know, is necessary because I think that it ends like a particular phase. And I think up until now in my life, I've done a particular thing, and I think I need a way to honor that in some ways.
Yes.
And so we're almost there.
That's epic, bro.
We're almost there. Yeah.
And I love that you took your time with it, and it's not something that's like a quick 6-month project.
And those things are tough because no one tells you how to make an album. Like, you know, it starts with frivolity. I'm gonna make an album, and then you're in the process of making an album, and then like maybe you start with one song. Well, this is what I went through, and then 2 months went by, and I'm like, am I still making an album? You know, I was like, I gotta make an album, but then after a little while, it's clicked. After it begins, the realization happens. Then you're like, oh, I'm in it, and it's tough because you manage the mental state of things as well, and it's even tougher for me because I'm having to manage 10 different artists, different publishers, different producers, different lead times in terms of progress. Like Some guys take like a month to do a thing. Some guys take like 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you, FK Mesh. He's gonna call me. He's like, "Why are you calling me out?" But I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's the
100%.
reality
It's
of
the
what's
reality.
happening. Yeah.
I don't think people realize what it takes to finish a body, man. Jeez.
It's tough, man.
It's tough.
I'm not done yet. I'm like going to myself, am I gonna do it again? I probably will, but right now I'm like, yo,
Yeah, while you're in the thick of it, it's probably the worst idea to be thinking about another album. Right? Like, man,
you know what I'm saying?
Think of it as the last one you'll ever have to do.
Yeah, that's it. That's how I'm thinking. I'm like, you guys, you're only getting one.
Yeah. It is crazy because then, once songs are complete, it's like to make the songs work together,
100%.
the body and how something ends and how something begins.
Man.
Those little tweaks and the versions of songs and. It's
like
just
some
crazy,
people are like, because like I'm also challenging the producers that like I'm sending stuff to. Like I sent like a German producer a song about, what it's like to grow up as a black kid, what it was like to grow up as a black kid post 1994. And he's like, I can't relate. I can't, I'm like, yo, dog, but you got the sound for it.
Yeah.
If there's anyone who's going to make this as cinematic as I wanted to, it's going to be you.
Amazing.
So it has presented very fun challenges.
Incredible, bro. If someone is listening today, or if you're chatting to like the 18-year-old version of yourself, like how does someone tackle, if someone is in this space, because no two parts are the same, right?
Yeah.
If there is anyone who's listening who's like figured out the poetry to the music, like great. But if we're chatting to someone who hasn't and they love poetry, like what would be the next step? Like what would be your advice to someone like that?
It's a great question, and it's one I think about a lot. And it was actually something that broke my heart with a lot of like people that I knew were really great poets, and then just left it because it wasn't bringing an income or anything. And I think the first most important thing is to unencumber your art with your financial of life, because what we do first, the beauty of art is when you can get paid from doing it and you can sustain your life from doing that. And that is not a reality for a lot of people, particularly in poetry. It's particularly tough. So don't lift the pressure that your poetry has to sustain you. And that's by doing other things, but while I'm saying, and that's why it's important that I say pressure, because if it's under pressure and it's not doing the thing, you're going to hate it. It's like, I'm always going out. I'm always like, I write so much. I'm in the studio, I'm pushing, but like, it's just not happening. I can't do this. Like, I can't eat from this. And then why should I be doing it? As soon as you go, it's not up to my poetry to feed me just as yet. It's not up for it to put the roof over my head. What it needs to actually do is be an outlet, and what it needs to be is the best that it can be. That makes, when you make a decision like that for your art, then nothing can hurt it because you're pushing it in your own way. You know what I'm saying? Whereas, and as I said, like I've seen a lot of friends quit, and I think that's what I did. And what work did and working does is that it allows me to be able to look after my family, to look after my daughter, to look after my partner, to look after my parents, all those things, and to look after myself. So now when I go into studio, I'm not going, this has to work out. I'm like, yo, what is this? I need a great poem. I need a great beat. I need this to be as beautiful as it can be. And that works really, really well.
Incredible, bro. That's such good advice, bro. You really hit the nail on the head there, bro.
Shout out,
it is important, it is important. And to the point where I've got Warren Ingram's going to come on the show. I don't know if you know him. He's the dude from like 702 back in the day. Giving like investing in advice, I'm bringing him on the show because I'm just like, I'd love for this guy to also help us tap into
like a deeper,
how do we get a bit deeper? How do we save better? How do we, and just find other ways to bring revenue in, and how do we build?
And that's so important, man. Like, and I realized that like, and early enough as well, the like just being a little bit more financially savvy and just finding other forms of income and pushing yourself, and sometimes it's just sleep, and you can get it back.
Definitely. Definitely, bro. If you had a billboard, bro, the normal billboard size,
Yeah.
So it almost looks like a screen.
Yes.
In the sense of what, like 1920, 1080.
Yeah.
And this billboard was going to be seen by every single person on planet Earth. What would you write on that billboard?
Lazarusman, winner of Best Spoken Word Album at the Grammys 2027.
Selfish.
Greedy. How greedy. How greedy.
The whole world, Lazarus.
How greedy. Yeah, that's it.
No,
Who did that. But I think on the real, I think it's self-belief, self-love. I'm very much about that, and it's there in my music. And I think I want people to do that, as soon as you internalize and you think deeply about who you are and why you are, things come together, man. I don't know what it is about. Just knowing yourself is you get it. You avoid so much. I understand, I can't be I could be there, but I also know being there is going to make me feel a particular, so I'm not going to be there. I'm not, so it's key. Self.
Underrated, bro. Yeah, 100%. I love that, bro. And so you've obviously been nominated before for a Grammy. This time, album, you're going to take it, bro. I don't think there's anything that's going to stop you, bro. I want to,
and I'm putting it out there.
Yeah.
It's not something like people have been saying, I was like, people say, move in silence, never know your next move. I hear you. I want to speak this shit into existence, bro.
Yeah, 100%, bro.
If I don't do it this time, I'll try again. I'll try again.
Exactly. Yeah. So what do you have to lose, bro?
You know what I'm saying?
So what? Someone's going to sit on there and say,
like,
he said he would, he didn't.
Yeah. I'm going to go again.
Exactly, my bro. Just to give you your flowers, man. I've got so much respect for you. I've got so much respect for your art, your voice, bro. I love that you've always been someone that's spoken your mind. I don't think we have enough people like that in society today. You've always shared, what's in your mind. You've always, sometimes it blows up on Twitter.
Yeah.
Occasionally. But I really, that's something I truly, truly respect and truly love, the way you've carved your own sort of world in this dimension of the music business, and what it means to follow a career. You somehow find time to do both, and you having a good time doing it, bro. That's the most impressive part,
It's a vibe.
And it doesn't feel like either one's falling off, It's not like the agencies are trying to stay away from, this guy hasn't worked a Friday for the last 5 years. It's not like that, bro. So it's and then on the music side, it's incredible to catch a set every now and then, and then to see how you're elevating it every time. It feels like you're practicing. It feels like it's growing. It feels like it's becoming something bigger. So shout out to you, my brother.
Thank you. Shout out to you, bro. Shout out for what you're doing. Shout out for giving us a voice. I appreciate that. I appreciate the invite. Shout out to M&C. Shout out to everybody.
Shout out to everybody. Shout out to you, my brother. Thank you. That was beautiful, bro.
Shout out
for making time, bro. That was so incredible, man. Bro,
good chat.
Heavy is the head that wear the crown. When I take the crown off, I put it on ice.